criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
What a lot of people don't realize is that the electric vehicle mandate is a bad thing, but once it goes away, people aren't going to be buying Teslas because Teslas suck. Okay, they're going to be buying BYD, which is a Chinese manufactured car, which is the most popular car in the rest of the modern world, where they don't have a tariff on electric vehicles and they're not forced to pay more for a good vehicle. And they're not forced to pay for Teslas, which are overpriced and are dangerous and are marketed as autopiloting when they're not.
In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago.
That's laughable.
And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote.
Cash for you. If you take away our overtime, then nobody's going to be manufacturing anything, you dumb fuck.
Trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, We will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
In other words, we're going to tax the imports on our own people. Okay? We're taxing imports for our country when we set up tariffs.
We are establishing
He's relying on you to not know what tariffs are.
Revenue service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
If it's anything like Twitter, then that's not free speech, that's censorship.
To persecute political opponents, something I know something about.
So in other words, if you call Trump out on his bullshit, he's going to try to arrest you.
We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. Respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we...
Wow. Wow. If you start a tariff war with Mexico, how the fuck do you think our prices are going to be when we have to import tomatoes and shit? Are you... This guy is retarded.
We will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this.
United States? What the hell is wrong with his teeth? Is he on like a bunch of stimulants again? Is he snorting the stimulant shit that he snorts?
Spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the
Was that
building of the
Sudafed?
Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes...
Yeah, well, what are you going to do about workers who are not treated fairly? Let's hear what your plan is for us.
And we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
Nobody cares about what happens overseas. We want to know what happens with us in our daily life.
Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will...
does that even mean?
It to new heights.
A bunch of banalities.
Success. We will not be deterred. Together we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free.
Half of the MAGA supporters don't even believe in the pandemic, dude.
The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Because you messed up this planet so bad that you just want to leave, huh?
Ambition.
Like, look at that. He even carries himself like a fascist dictator.
Is the lifeblood of a great nation. And right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers.
To be honest, he seems a little bit low energy what he usually is.
Into our hearts, the call of the
I wonder if his vigor and vitality is finally running out.
From within our souls.
Can't cover your own bets anymore, huh, Mr. Trump?
Of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth. No one comes close. Americans push thousands of miles.
Notice how fascists like him will mention the republic, but they conveniently ignore the representative democracy that is part of that hybrid system we have. They don't like representation for everyday people. They like representation for the billionaire class and the rich people,
through a rugged land of
the top
untamed
echelons of
wilderness.
society.
They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny.
Just FYI, we did not end slavery. Slavery just transformed and evolved from one form to another. It evolved from slavery to feudalism, and now we have what is called capitalism, where you are also a slave. You're a slave to sell your wage for one bad deal over another. You get to pick which king you want to serve, okay?
Lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the
I don't know about you, but poverty seems to be increasing.
heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together...
And you know, all the greatest thinkers, Einstein, Tesla, and others in that realm, were all either socialist or skeptical of the capitalist system in general. So let that sink in there for a moment.
There is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today...
No, it wasn't, because people are desperate. That's why I don't blame people for voting for Trump, because people are desperate for an anti-establishment figure. They literally are so terrified that democracy is going to crumble, they're putting their faith into somebody that they otherwise wouldn't, because the system is about to crumble and people don't want to realize that. The system is going to come to a collapse, all right? Capitalism, it is in its final stages here in America, okay? And in the American country, superpower as we know it is coming to an end. This is the start of it, and it's happening very fast from historical standards, okay? So these are all red flags. All red flags.
Today, here I am. The American people have spoken.
When people feel like they don't have an outlet democratically to get things done or change things, they are going to react violently like they've done in the past. Okay, this is cyclical. Economic systems, when they collapse, and they don't collapse, and they don't address their internal contradictions in a peaceful manner, when they collapse, they can become very violent, like in the French Revolution. We put people like him in something called a guillotine. People like Mr. Trump were thrown in something called a guillotine, where they were separated from their head because the people didn't want to be oppressed anymore. And they weren't buying the bullshit.
I stand before you.
Again, the king would often lie or confuse data to make the people think that they needed him. All right, you need the king. I keep you in control. I keep things orderly. No, you don't.
Now is proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had.
Our country's strong middle class, and the reason why our country was so great for so long, is because of the workers who fought and died for their rights for Social Security benefits. These socialists and those workers in the labor movement who fought and died for your right for unemployment compensation, for your right for a 40-hour work week where you can get overtime after that. And this asshole wants to take it away in this 2025 plan. Yes, I found it last night. In the plan, it says right there, an intention to shift towards a 160-hour work month so that you have more flexibility. No, that means you can work 159 hours in the month, and then your employer has the ability to say, oh, you have the next day off, so I don't have to pay you any of that overtime. He's a scammer, he's a con man, and he is not in it for you if you are a worker. He's in it for a capitalist, okay? He is a capitalist, and that is his class. That is his agenda, okay? He is not a worker. He does not have the same agenda as a worker, okay? So that it's ridiculous to think that you, as a working class citizen, has the same agenda as this jackass billionaire who's lying to you on a daily basis.
For our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners.
Another interesting fact is, yes, most folk singers and which was the early precursors to country music, were actually socialist because they were farmers, okay? They saw the big businesses coming in and destroying the smaller businesses and the farms and the communities, all right? A lot of the folk singers and early country singers were socialist and communist, and they were socialists and communists for a reason, all right? Just because we've been brainwashed in this country and had decades long of Cold War propaganda doesn't mean that's not true.
Police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways.
Let me just make an important point here. He's talking about real work, real labor, real construction work, which I used to do, okay? That's hard work. And a jackass like this, if you think he earned his billions of dollars with physical labor or actual work that he did, you're dreaming, okay? Because there is no comparison for somebody who's working 10 hours with a jackhammer on a damn bridge versus this idiot who's sitting in his chair and making phone calls all day. No, go fuck yourself.
Won 2 world wars, defeated.
Tell me you earned that money. No, you stole that money from people.
Over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America, promise.
I promise you right now, Mr. Trump, if you enact a tariff war on Mexico and all sorts of other countries, that it's not going to be a great 4 years. It's going to be the catalyst to a hyperinflation scenario. It's going to be a catalyst to another a collapse, an economic collapse or recession of some kind. And I'm afraid if we have another one at this point, we might not be able to recover. It might be a total 100% catastrophic system failure. Okay. The internal contradictions can only be patched so much before they finally succumb to the paradox. All right. You can't have a paradox in a system and have it self-sustaining. It's not possible. Okay. Eventually it's going to collapse in on itself. So I guarantee you enact a tariff war and you massively deport our cheap labor for agriculture in this country, you're going to start a situation, a catalyst for collapse. And I guarantee you we're going to see higher prices for food, for milk, for fruits and vegetables, all the things we import, because we don't grow nearly any of that here.
And we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before.
Not speaking to you if you're a worker. Again, he's speaking to capitalists. All right, he's speaking to his rich buddies. He's going to fight for his rich buddies. He won't fight for you. He's trying to take away your overtime.
Thank you.
You take away our overtime, buddy, I guarantee you're not going to like the response.
Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before.
Oh, make it great again. Such another common banality. What do they call it? Glaring generalities. Okay, we went over this in our propaganda section. It's called a glaring generality. It means nothing. Nothing. It's a word without a meaning behind it. It's pointless.
We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been...
Didn't stop all wars last term.
Unpredictable.
What took you so long?
America will be respected again and
building up the courage,
including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before.
We will stop slurring our words.
We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation.
God, we're all going to die.
We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you.
Your golden age just begun. Remember, we're living under gilded age level inequality, meaning this jackass and his rich buddies have more wealth than the bottom 50 or 60% of America. Okay, so the gilded age inequality is what led to the labor movements and the strong need for socialist ideologies in this country. Okay, you had a bunch of inequality caused by capitalism, and then you have these people who are like, well, capitalism might not be the best thing, so they looked into socialism and different types of alternative theories, and they started movements against the capitalism, okay? Against the capitalist oppression that was happening that led to the Great Depression. And there was all sorts of labor movements and socialist movements during that time because it was bad for workers. It was terrible. People were working their ass off like they are now. And I'd like to remind people, this generation, my generation, is the first generation that has it worse than their parents did. We have to work more, we have to borrow more, and we get less for our money, okay? It's a terrible situation, and we distract ourselves with phones and TikTok so we don't have to put our face in it. We don't have to realize our suffering every day. But these people in the Great Depression, they didn't have distractions, okay? They went out and they started movements because they didn't have distractions. They had to sit around and wallow in their suffering. So they put action to their suffering, okay? And they started movements. And that's what's going to happen if you continue to oppress the working class in this country. And I don't see any plan to do otherwise in the next 4 years.
God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, always, when he turns around, always look on the bottom of his shoe for toilet paper. This guy is a moron. So that's, just keep that in mind. He might have some toilet paper sticking out somewhere because he is an absolute moron.
Ladies and gentlemen, performing America.
Why does it look like he's sucking a dick every time he does that fist bump? Look, he looks like he's sucking a dick. Somebody please edit that. Somebody please edit that.
Gentlemen, performing America the Beautiful, please welcome the Armed Forces Chorus and Carrie Underwood.
Oh God, Carrie Underwood. Ugh. He literally couldn't get anybody but like the worst of the worst. You don't see Keanu Reeves up there, do you, ladies and gentlemen? No, because Keanu Reeves is woke. That means he's aware of the systemic injustices in our society, and he's not going to contribute to them. She starts singing, I gotta take it off. I don't know if she's gonna sing or what. Is she getting ready to take a shit? I don't know. Yeah, no, she's getting ready to sing. So we gotta turn this off. So basically, it's business as usual. I chimed in hoping that there would be some last minute adjustments because Trump does like to be loved and he does like to lie. And there has been a lot of uprising in the MAGA communities regarding his choices lately, especially with like Elon Musk being picked. People don't like billionaires. I don't give a fuck if you're Republican or a Democrat. People do not like billionaires, okay? They like Trump because he's a celebrity. Some people like Elon because he's also a celebrity. But in general, the billionaire class is hated on by the general population as seen with the reaction to the Brian Thompson assassination. Okay, people do not like rich people because they've been contributing to our suffering for so long, and they know that. People aren't stupid. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So what I see here is a serious lack of any kind of serious economic intervention for the working class people that would prevent the revolution necessary for an economic transition out of capitalism. So what we have here is the prime bit of perfect storm for a catalyst to a transition. So if there ever was going to be a transition out of capitalism or into any other kind of system, maybe a hybrid or an evolution of our current economic system, if there ever was a total capitalist system failure in our generation, we are now seeing the precursors to that, the catalyst to that. Okay? Remember, nothing lasts forever. The only constant is change in this universe, and to think that an economic system could satisfy a population indefinitely, especially when it has internal contradictions, is just laughable, and it doesn't hold up to scientific scrutiny. So I wanted to give you guys an update on this inauguration and try to, real-time fact-check some stuff because there was a lot of lies being thrown around there, specifically around the tariffs. It's kind of like when you have a union on the rise at Amazon, and Amazon, throws out some anti-union propaganda to make you believe that unions are bad. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's propaganda, okay? So when Trump comes out and says we're going to have a tariff war and it's going to be better for you, he's not talking about working people. He's talking about his rich buddies, okay? And even he is going to, and even that's going to backfire on him, because tariffs are supposed to be strategically implemented in only, small sectors of the economy, not a widespread tariff war, which will inevitably raise prices, because that's what tariffs do. They're a tax on imports that come into this country. So if you're too lazy to look up what a tariff is and you just listen to what Trump says, you're not going to understand what a tariff is, because it is a tax. It's a tax on imports on our people. Okay? It's not a tax. He's acting like he's taxing China or taxing Mexico. No, that's not what's happening. We're importing things from China and Mexico, and then our people have to pay more for them with the tariff tax. That's what it is. Okay? So the fact that he got so many people fooled into thinking tariffs aren't taxes is actually astounding. But it shows you that people are just sheep. They won't listen to what he says and not fact check a damn thing. And that's a damn shame. But people need to start fact checking what everybody says. Okay, even me. Fact check what everybody says. It's a serious shit.
Bless President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance with the strength and courage to choose the right and the good. Unite us around our foundational biblical values of life and liberty.
Big Mike, Mike, I don't think Mike you talk about Mike does? Yeah, Mike does usually stops by. He might be streaming right now. I'm not sure.
Of service and sacrifice, and especially of faith and morality, which George Washington called the indispensable supports of American prosperity. Guide our schools and college campuses, which have been experiencing such unrest.
Now, we've already gone over the Trump 2025 plan and the Doge Department of Government Efficiency, or whatever the fuck that means. Their plan on dismantling the Department of Education, which will be disastrous for low-income communities, especially the children who primarily get their main meal of the day at school from public-provided lunches. So dismantling public education and enforcing all of the funding for public education onto the states is going to inevitably raise taxes for local communities and put the tax burden on poor people even more so. So it's absolutely disgusting what's going on. Keep that in mind. Anytime somebody from the Trump administration talks about education, because that is what their plan is. Their plan is to dismantle public education funding and put the tax burden of such funding onto local communities and state, and put the tax burden on the state. So, again, who does that benefit? Who the fuck does that benefit? It doesn't benefit me as a worker trying to put my kid through school, and I don't have money to send him to a private school. I got to put him to public school. That doesn't benefit me. No, that benefits the rich people who don't have to pay those taxes anymore and put the tax burden on us. It's the oldest trick in the book, guys. They rig the tax system and they make us believe that it's a good thing for us. Okay? It's the oldest trick in the book.
To inspire the next generation, to pair progress with purpose, knowledge with wisdom, and truth with virtue. Hear the cry of the hostages, both American and Israeli, whose pain our president so acutely feels.
I honestly don't think Trump has the ability to feel empathy. He displays like straight up narcissistic traits. He seems like a megalomaniac, and he doesn't really seem to understand certain aspects of how sympathy or empathy work. He seems to be able to fake it pretty well. He's a good actor, fair actor, but I mean, peeling back the surface, he doesn't really seem to understand how some of these aspects of human decency work. It's almost like he's a sociopath trying to fake it.
Are so thankful for the 3 young women who yesterday returned home, and pray that the next 4 years brings peace to Israel and throughout the Middle East. Almighty God, grant all Americans the opportunity to realize our shared dream of a life filled with peace and plenty, health and happiness, compassion and contribution. Stir within us the confidence to rise to this moment. For while we trust in God, God's trust is in us, the American people. America is called to greatness, to be a beacon of light and a mover of history. May our nation merit the fulfillment of Jeremiah's blessing, the like a tree planted by...
So, real quick, I have a couple of examples of why I believe Trump doesn't really understand empathy or how it works. So let's go back to 2017 during the Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. After the devastating hurricane, Trump visited Puerto Rico and was photographed tossing paper towels into a crowd of survivors like he was playing a game of football. The gesturing was widely criticized as insensitive and lacking genuine compassion for the victims. Again, he seemed like he was trying to be there to have a good time. People were struggling. They weren't there to play a game of fucking football, Mr. President. They were there struggling to survive. Okay? Mocking a disabled reporter, remember that. During a campaign rally, Trump mocked a New York Times reporter, Sergei Kovaleski, who has a physical disability affecting his arm movement, right? And that's just disgusting. His imitation was perceived as mocking and showed a lack of empathy for individuals with disability. Okay, let's go on to example number 3, which was his response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Remember, Trump's handling of the pandemic drew criticism for downplaying the severity of the virus and making misleading statements. His actions were seen as lacking empathy for millions when he later then came out and tried to promote the vaccine. And at that point, he'd already indoctrinated the MAGA community into believing that the virus wasn't a serious problem, so he kind of screwed himself. So now a lot of MAGA still believes the virus was BS and won't get the vaccine, even though Trump himself has the vaccine. So let that bit of irony sink in for you. Example number 4, disparaging comments about fallen soldiers. Trump repeatedly referred to fallen U.S. soldiers as losers and suckers. That doesn't really sound like a patriot to me, guys. Okay, expressing a lack of empathy for their sacrifice because he doesn't know what it means to sacrifice. He's been handed things to him his entire fucking life. And also, he threatened to withhold disaster aid, which is extremely childish, by the way. Who does that? Oh, you don't listen to me. I'm going to threaten withholding disaster aid because I'm a child. Okay? In the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, Trump threatened to withhold federal disaster aid from California unless Governor Gavin Newsom met his demands. This action was criticized as politically motivated and lacking empathy for those affected in a disaster who are sitting on their fucking thumbs waiting for a decision to be made. These instances highlight concerns about Trump's capacity for empathy in general. Okay, he's a fucking sociopath.
Order, we shall not cease to bear fruit. May all of humanity experience your love and your blessing. May it be.
I think Biden already was on stage earlier. I think they already shook hands. I missed it, though. He did something stupid. Crowder was pissed off about Biden for a reason. I was watching Crowder a few minutes before I started the stream, and he said Biden did something silly, and he was kind of giving him shit about it for. So I don't know. We'll have to rewind it and see what Biden was doing. But yeah, I think they already showed Biden shaking hands with Trump and passing along the stick or whatever.
A millimeter miracle. We are grateful that you are the one that have called him for such a time as this, that America would begin to dream again. We pray that we would fulfill the true meaning of our creed.
Let me just oh, hold on, let me pause this for a second. One second.
That we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. We pray that you use our president, that we will live in a nation where we will not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we are so grateful today that you will use our 47th president so we would sing with new meaning, my country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and because America is called to be a great nation, we believe that you will make this come true. So let freedom ring. From the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire, let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York, let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Oh, this is kind of ridiculous, and it's kind of a show at this point, because Martin Luther King, if you know anything about Martin Luther King, and this is very ironic and kind of sad that Martin Luther King Day is today on this inauguration, just because let's juxtapose the Trump administration with Martin Luther King, okay? So Martin Luther King was a revolutionary, all right? And he was against fascism. He was an Antifa. He was anti-fascist, okay? Martin Luther King was a revolutionary, a critic of the system, okay? Donald Trump is an authoritarian populist. He is a proponent of the system, okay? They're two polar opposites here that could not be more dissimilar. Dr. King was a revolutionary in the sense that he sought profound societal transformation through nonviolent civil disobedience. He challenged systemic racism, or wokeism. Yes, being woke just means being aware to systemic racism. How it's evolved to something now and completely different is beyond me. But its original meaning, being woke, is being aware of systemic injustices. That's it. That's all it means. And economic inequality is what he fought for. Okay, our economic inequality is what he fought against. Okay, the Vietnam War he fought against as well, advocating for radical revolutionary values. Okay, that these values specifically that emphasize justice, love, and brotherhood. Okay, his activism aimed to dismantle oppressive structures and promote a more equitable society. He was against the status quo. Trump is a proponent of the status quo. Okay, he benefits from the status quo. These two people could not be more dissimilar. And the fact that we have his inauguration on Martin Luther King Day is honestly just an insult to Martin Luther King's memory. Okay, Beneficence TV is a show of revolution. Okay, I consider myself to be a revolutionary. I challenge existing ideas, and I push for a radically different system than we have now. So just keep that in mind going forward with this inauguration, because Martin Luther King's agendas and Trump's agendas are ass backwards, right? They're different as hell. Like you can't combine them because they're polar opposite. So this is just a joke right here.
Snow-capped Rockies of Colorado, let freedom ring. From the curvaceous hilltops of California, but God, we're asking you not only that, let freedom ring from...
Yeah, it's just a show. It's just a show. It has nothing to do with freedom. It has nothing to do with, systemic justices. When George Floyd got the shit beat out of him and died because of police brutality, was Trump there to protect George Floyd's, the George Floyd movement, or promote it? No, he was there to protect the police.
Georgia, let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and every molehill in Mississippi, from every state, every city, every village, and every hamlet. And when we let freedom ring, we will be able to speed up that day where all of your children, black men and white men, Protestant and Catholic.
What about socialist men? Do we get a say too? Because apparently Trump is talking about going after political opponents like a dictator would do. Okay? Dissent is something that shouldn't be a criminal. All right? That's why we have freedom of speech in this country. People conflate freedom of speech with, oh, I can say whatever the hell I want. No, that's not what the intention of freedom of speech is in the Constitution. Your constitutional right of freedom of speech is your freedom to speak out against government oppression. That's the intended goal of the freedom of speech in the Constitution. Okay, nothing to do with, oh, I want to say whatever I want on Twitter. That has nothing to do with the freedom of speech under the Constitution. Okay? The fact that we have a dictator as president going around saying he's going to arrest political activism or opponents is very, very dangerous. That's what dictators do. Okay? That's what totalitarian regimes do. That's what the USSR did. And if you're going to criticize the USSR for doing that, then you have to criticize yourself.
Jew and Gentile will be able to sing in the meaning of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank you, God Almighty. We are free at last.
Martin Luther King is turning in his grave right now. Oh my God.
If you believe where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Come on, put your hands together and give your great God great glory.
Yes, clap for your imminent demise. It's very dystopian. With smiles on your faces, we're all gonna burn. But at least you got a smile on your face.
Almighty and eternal God, we gather here today in reverence, joined in our shared hopes and dreams for our beloved nation. In this sacred moment of the inauguration of President Donald J. Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, we turn our hearts to you, seeking your divine assistance and abundant blessings upon this pivotal moment in history. We come before you with profound gratitude for the many gifts you have bestowed upon our land. Thank you for the freedoms we cherish, for the strength of our communities, and for the resilience of our spirit. As our President and Vice President embrace their newly appointed roles, we humbly implore that your everlasting love and wisdom will envelop them. Grant them the clarity of mind to navigate the challenges that lie ahead, and the compassion to serve all citizens with fairness and integrity. May their hearts be filled with a giving spirit and sincere understanding for those whom they represent. May they be beacons of hope in times of uncertainty and prophetic voices in defending the dignity of all created life. We pray for a spirit of collaboration to flourish in our government and across our nation, fostering an environment where dialogue and heartfelt listening will prevail over division or discord. May each decision made by our President and Vice President reflect the values of justice and peace. As we embark on this new chapter, we also seek your comfort, O God, for those who feel lost or disheartened. In this time of transition, may your light shine upon them, reaffirming their belief in a brighter tomorrow. May we all strive to lift one another, supporting our fellow citizens with kindness and empathy, recognizing that together we can overcome any adversity. Grant us the strength.
I don't know if it's just me, but this guy who's speaking looks like he's terrified, or he's like really worried about something. I'm gonna skip this. Let's go on to the next part. No, 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 no. We got a bunch of B-listers because none of the A-listers would want to show up for a fascist dictator. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of history, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, part of the reason why I do what I do is because I don't want you to regret being on the wrong side of history either. Okay? We want everybody to be ahead of the curve. And to be ahead of the curve means being aware of class consciousness and something that has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And if we're not aware of this class warfare, then we're going to be doomed to repeat this class warfare over and over. It is only when we realize what class warfare is how we can avoid it. At that point, we can avoid it and change the system for the better. Otherwise, we're just going to be repeating the same mistake over and over again.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Yeah, that's why we have secularism. You know, secularism is important because it was, you know, we didn't, like, even though it says we are one nation under God, that's more symbolic, if anything. We employed secularism to separate church from state because, you know, the founding fathers realized institutionalized religion can get corrupt, so, or can be corrupted. So, yeah, you don't want to mix church and state because when you institutionalize a religion, it makes it an incentive to hold power over the government, like any kind of capitalist business, you know. So you have the agenda where the religion is incentivized to co-opt the government at that point.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain at your seats while the president and official party.
Yeah, you don't want a theocracy. Yeah, I have nothing against religion. You know, I believe in God just, you know, as much as the next religious person, but... Let's mute this. I wonder if we can see Trump and Melania. She's always swatting away his hand because he wants to have like that nice press photo of him holding hands with his wife, but his wife fucking hates him because she married him for his money, not for his, like, you know, personality or anything like that. So here we have the new American dynasty. We have King Trump and his family about to move into the White House again, unfortunately, proving that America is no longer a democracy but a corporatocracy, or kleptocracy, rather. Sorry, misspoke. So it's all hands on deck for this next 4 years. We're gonna have to pay attention. You know, again, I can't predict what the administration is going to do. At the end of the day, they could do something good. Who knows? But we want to go into it with a strong dose of skepticism because we've known how the last term turned out, and we know that Trump is a pathological liar who is motivated by self-interest over anything else. And I'm really, really concerned that he might try to hold on power at the end of the 4 years simply because he is out of moves. You know, after this next 4 years, he is no longer able to get all the attention as president and all the perks that he loves so much. So, you know, who's to tell what's going to happen? Will he try to incite another insurrection to try to hold on power like, you know, any other dictator would do? You know, I can't predict that, but it wouldn't be surprising at this point. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. Which is why I predict we're going to have a lot of American refugees going to Canada and even Mexico. I suspect we already do have a lot of American healthcare refugees going to Canada for, insulin and stuff. But it's just going to get worse. We're going to have refugees from all areas of the economy going to different countries or trying to, move to different countries to exit the great dismantling of our working class in America, because that's what this is. Make no mistake, if these tariffs hit our shores, if these tariffs, these tax on our imports, if there is a tariff war, it's going to raise prices. And then if you deport our cheap labor for agriculture, it's going to raise prices. And again, remember that expose we did on the market, the dairy market. There was an interview done with a man who owned a farm, a dairy farm, and he said 2 days. He said if you deport all of our immigrants who work in this industry, because they're everywhere, not just in one place or another, they're everywhere. Remember, capitalists want cheap labor. That's what their goal is. That's why they outsource jobs to China in the first place. If you deport all those people, 2 days, and America will run out of milk. So let that sink in when you want some milk with your cookies after Trump gets through with the great deportation and tax war of 2025. So if that's what we have to look forward to, I am not optimistic in the least. Actually, I'm kind of worried. So, we do have an economic system that is succumbing to its internal contradictions, even outside of this Trump situation. So the collapse is imminent, regardless of Trump's inauguration or not. But this might just exacerbate the situation. It's not going to alleviate anything if he doesn't provide working class support. But if he comes in and provides working class support, I'm going to raise the minimum wage. I'm going to make it easier for you to form a union. I'm going to give you more protections under that, union, better labor laws like other countries. I'm going to come in and I'm going to give you, paid time off mandated by the federal government. So if you work 40 hours, you work full time, you are mandated by the government that you have to get paid time off. No more of this bullshit where you don't have any sick days and you have to come in sick and spread that sickness to everyone. No more of that bullshit. That's why we have that in this country, because we don't have federally mandated time off. If we had paid time off and sick leave, then that wouldn't be an issue. But think about how many times you go to a grocery store or you go to a pizza place and the person behind the counter is sick and they're still working there. And you don't, I don't know about you, but when that happens to me, I don't want to order food there. I want to leave. But it's not a problem of the pizza place. It's a problem because the federal government hasn't stepped in and mandated that you have paid time off. You have sick leave. When you don't have sick leave, you can't afford to take a sick day. It's that fucking simple. I mean, it's not really rocket science here. Look, at the end of the day, his tariff rhetoric could be just, hyperbole. Like a lot of things he says is hyperbole, and that's something also. Is it possible that he could do a strategic tariff war? Of course it's possible. It's possible that he could do a short strategic tariff war, and that wouldn't, in and of itself, do much damage in the larger scheme of things, right? Because tariffs are supposed to be enacted strategically and in short term. Because they do have a tendency to raise prices because they're taxes. And is that possible? Yes. But based on everything that I've heard and seen thus far, I'm not very optimistic. But it is still possible. So, I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm just trying to prepare for everybody so they're not disappointed in Trump if you ended up voting for him and you think that he's going to make things better for working people. Because at the end of the day, no time in the history of humankind has a rich person who's at the top of society changed things for the bottom half who's being oppressed. That's never happened. It's only when those bottom half decide that they don't want to be oppressed anymore and stand up for themselves that things actually change in society. Marx studied this. Marxism is nothing more than the scientific study of social change. He wanted to understand why societies are the way they are, why they eventually fall and collapse, and why, they have what he called internal contradictions. Things that lead to their inevitable collapse. So this is all very scientific. We can go back in history and look at the patterns. So at this point, all we can do is try to be aware of the patterns and not be, shocked when we have red flags like we're seeing now. Nathan said when he worked at KFC threw chicken at each other. He said it was fun. Oh my god, that's funny. That's funny as hell. Marxism doesn't work. Sure it does. Marxism is a science at the end of the day, and you can take a class on Marxian economics right now from Professor Wolf on YouTube. It'll show you all the arithmetic, all the math that's involved, and all the science. It's actually nothing more than the scientific analysis of economic systems. That's all Marxism is. Socialism came afterwards, or actually there were versions of socialism before Marx, but socialism primarily came after when people decided, how do we interpret what Marx told us about economic systems? What do we do about this? We have these internal contradictions that are going to lead to instability in a system. How do we fix that? So they debated and argued, and that's why there's many different versions of socialism, and socialists often argue amongst each other because we have radically different views on how to proceed, right? And what's the best way to proceed? And that's really what it boils down to. The only thing that socialists have in common is this one fact. We think that we can do better than capitalism. That's it. Socialists think that capitalism isn't the best for society. We think that we can do better. That's the only thing that socialists have in common. So to lump socialists into one large convenient group to attack is kind of silly, because I have radically different views than somebody who is considered a tanky, somebody who believes in USSR style socialism, which I do not. I think that's authoritarianism. Okay? So there's a difference there, there's nuance, but Marxism is nothing more than the scientific analysis of economic systems and their patterns of being born, evolving, and eventually succumbing to the internal contradictions that they have. So it's nothing more than the scientific study of social change. And it's been skewed and attacked so much that people don't really understand what Marxism is. They conflate it with socialism. They conflate it with ideology, but it's not. It's just an analysis. That's all it is. Marx was never saying this is the correct way to proceed out of capitalism. He was never saying this is how we should set up our government. Marx didn't give a damn about the government in regards to how to proceed out of capitalism. Okay, he's not a fortune teller. He would laugh at people who asked him to predict the future and which was the correct ideology to proceed out of capitalism. He would laugh at people who asked him to do that. He would say, if you want somebody to predict the future, go to a fortune teller. Okay? He is there to analyze the situation and understand why things are happening. Right? That's all Marxism is an analysis. It's a scientific lens. And to say it's anything other than that, you misunderstand what it is. And I highly suggest that if you're still confused on the subject, I have lots of episodes from the social situation to the Red Pill series where we delve into all of that, separating fact from fiction, because again, we have decades-long eras of CIA-funded Cold War propaganda, meaning we needed a war. We needed a war to keep the war machine going after World War II, so we had a Cold War with Russia, who used to be our ally. Remember, Stalin and we had Uncle Joe and Uncle Sam hand in hand at a lot of the post offices in this country before World War II. Why? Because they were our allies. And somehow they become our enemy after World War II because the war machine needed to keep turning. Okay, they needed an enemy to keep fighting. All right, so what did the CIA do? Because socialism was extremely popular. After all, socialism and the labor movements are what brought us Social Security and all the benefits we had from the FDR era of the New Deal. Okay, so what went wrong there? Well, since the war machine needed to keep turning and we focused our efforts at Russia, who was socialist, the CIA decided to spread all sorts of anti-socialist, anti-communist Cold War propaganda to indoctrinate a whole generation into not asking questions about what socialism actually is, but to just fear it, into thinking it's some kind of authoritarian system, which it is not. It is literally just the constructive criticism of capitalism in different various forms. All right? And it's not an evil to constructively criticize capitalism. If you think it's evil to constructively criticize anything, then I would argue that that's not in good faith position to be in when trying to determine the values of your society. So, yeah, we are suffering from a whole CIA-funded era of Cold War indoctrination, right? I call it Cold War syndrome, where people, they just regurgitate old talking points from the Cold War era, but they don't actually look up what these terms mean or the differences between them. They don't care. But if you actually understood what these terms mean, you would understand that Marxism isn't the same as socialism, okay? It's the analytical framework in which a lot of socialists base their ideology off of, but it is not an ideology of itself. It is simply an analysis. It's a scientific analysis of capitalism and previous economic systems. So the sooner that people understand that, the sooner that we can get beyond this kind of stigma behind Marxism. Because, you know, when I bring up that I'm a Marxist, a lot of people who are indoctrinated with that Cold War syndrome like to dismiss me just because of that word and not actually listen to what I have to say, which is kind of sad. But it is telling that there is a whole era here that we have to account for that's missing, right? We're like bears. Richard Wolff likes to say we're bears in this country. We're sleeping, hibernating for about 70 years on this topic. We don't know what the difference between socialism and communism and Marxism are, because they've been confused so much just to enact a fear-mongering campaign, right, to propel the Cold War war machine. So to keep that going, we had to indoctrinate a whole era of Americans who don't really understand what Marxism is. They don't understand what socialism is. They don't understand what communism is. And they don't understand the differences between the three. Okay? And because of that, they'll never understand the bubble that we live in America, where other countries, every other modern industrialized country has socialist parties in their government. Why do they have socialist parties if it's such a bad thing? You know, why do they have communist parties if it's such a bad thing? Well, you have to look at the meanings behind those two definitions, right? Or those two words, the definitions behind those two words, and they're umbrella words. Well, what does an umbrella word mean? It means it encompasses a wide variety of different things, right? It has multiple definitions, so you can't just lump them into one convenient category to attack. That's denoting of a logical fallacy. So what we do here is we separate those three meanings, and we what I try to do is break them down in an easily digestible way, so you understand what the differences are between, say, socialism and communism. Which, if you look at the history of communism is nothing more than a different form of socialism. They only called themselves communists because they wanted to differentiate themselves from the democratic socialists during the Bolshevik Revolution, when one part of the country said, of the workers said, no, we want to do this peacefully through the government, and they called themselves democratic socialists. Okay, well, the other group had to differentiate themselves somehow, so they called themselves communists, okay, which was the long-term goal of a communist society, not to be confused with a communist state, which has little to do with a communist society. It is only a state run by a communist party. But you see the difference there. It's a state run by a communist party, but it has nothing to do with the societal implications of a scientific communist society or utopia. Okay? That's a different definition. So when you confuse the two, like, and I love Mike Kay from Faraday Research. He's absolutely brilliant. But when he comes on and says China and Russia are communist, that's not accurate. Okay? They might be a communist state, but that doesn't do anything to give us any indication of what kind of economy or government they have. Okay? They don't have a communist government. They don't have a communist state. Or they don't have a communist-run economy. So what they have is a socialist economy. Okay, So that's the difference here. And it's, I know there's a lot of different definitions for these umbrella terms, and it's confusing, and it gets confusing, I know. But to not understand the differences between these terms, you're doing a great disservice when trying to understand the larger scheme of things and what's going on in our economy now, because it's all relevant. You know, Marx called this out long time ago. We're in what he called late stage capitalism. And it's when the internal contradictions can no longer keep up, are too much for the system to keep up its own itself, right? Capitalism can't cover its own bets anymore. It's going to collapse. Why do I say that? Well, you look at late stage capitalism, what Marx had to say about it, there are indications. One of them is the worker can no longer afford to buy the goods and services they themselves are producing. Now look at what's happening now. We have a system where you can't buy a car outright, even if you have a full-time job or 2 full-time jobs. You have to borrow money to buy a car. What did Ford do back in the day? I know Ford's a disgusting person, but what did he do for his workers back in the day? He made sure that every one of his workers could afford a Model T. Not have to borrow money for a Model T, could afford to buy one off of their wage. Okay? This is a system in which the worker can no longer afford to buy the goods and services they themselves are producing. The capitalist has successfully increased the difference between labor input and wage that he is killing himself. And if you can't see that after I've explained it at this point, then I really can't help you, because that's the simplest way to put it. I mean, a capitalist's job is to maximize the difference between how much you work and how much you get paid. If he is successful at that, he has maximized that difference so much that the worker can't buy what he himself is producing. That is a great internal contradiction. Who the fuck is the capitalist going to sell their product to if the workers can't buy what they're producing? It's the most obvious flaw, and when you realize it, you realize, oh wow, this system is terrible. It's crap. It's built on a house of fucking cards. It's a con. You don't have to finance a car. It's not about having to finance a car or not. Okay? It's about how much money is in my pocket and how much that money can buy. And at the end of the day, our generation has it worse than the last generation for the first time in this country, because our money can't buy what it used to. Okay? Real wages have been stagnant compared to inflation. We've substituted the difference, though. We fooled ourselves into thinking we have all this technological advancement and all this stuff, this material stuff. We fooled ourselves into thinking we're rich as workers because we can buy all this cheap stuff, right? But at the end of the day, your wage has been stagnant compared to inflation for over 50 years. Okay? If you look back in the 1960s, right? The New Deal, which gave the working class a strong middle class, which built the strong middle class of America, the New Deal and all of its benefits, right? Social Security, unemployment compensation, things that catch people who fall through the cracks of capitalism, right? People who are down on their luck, they get fired, not because you didn't work hard, but because, your boss wants to save more money or whatever. Okay? It's not your fault you got fired. So those systems are there to catch real hard-working Americans who just fall through the cracks, no fault of their own. And it's not about, oh, you don't have to borrow money for a car if you don't want to. It's about how much my money can buy compared to what it used to be able to buy. Okay? So if my money is continually going down in value and my wages aren't keeping up with the inflation that we're seeing, then I have to make up the difference somehow. I got to pay bills. How am I going to do that? Oh, I'm going to work a second job, which is what Americans are doing, working 2 or 3 jobs. Okay? We're going to borrow more. We're going to borrow more for things we didn't used to have to borrow for. We didn't used to have to borrow money for a car. If you had a full-time job, you could buy 2 cars. You could support your family, a whole family, have a house. Okay? You can't say that you could do that anymore off of one income. That's impossible to do nowadays because wages have been stagnant compared to inflation for so long that our money just simply doesn't go as far as it used to. We're like frogs in a pot of heating water. And the previous generation can't see the struggles of the new generation because they're stuck in the past. Oh God, no. California is even worse. No, generally there are some benefits to having, in my opinion, to having a red versus blue state. But California is just an example of corrupt Democrats left and right. Like, it's bad, and it's another. California is another example that I give to show people that I'm not a bipartisan hack, right? I don't just fight for one side of the political aisle. I don't care what political side you're on. As long as you're a worker, you're an ally, and that's my opinion. If you're in the working class, if you have to work to pay for your bills and you don't own any capital, then you're an ally to me. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a socialist or a Green Party member. You're an ally if you're in the working class. Because at the end of the day, we're all in the same sinking ship together. But California is just terrible. And I feel bad for everybody who lives there. Like Nathan, you got to deal with all this crap. And I can imagine, you're seeing all these failed attempts at controlling, things like homelessness, and you attribute that to failures of the democratic ideology, which in my opinion, it's not. It's just corruption. It's just corruption. At the end of the day, rich people don't want to have to pay for taxes that support these programs. And if you look at the history of poverty in any country, no poverty has been reduced in any country without enormous government social spending. That's just how it works. And that the social spending often comes from progressive taxation, which taxes the rich more than the poor people. But what we have now is the rich people have bought and paid for the tax system. They have bought and paid for our political process. So they've rigged the tax system. So the people at the very top, they actually pay very little compared to us. So when people like me are paying more in taxes than people like Jeff Bezos, the system is rigged, and that any kind of attempt to fix those problems like homelessness are going to get skewed and diluted. But that's just my opinion. I don't know, Katie. I almost went homeless this month. Okay, and it wasn't anything to do with anybody other than my previous employer who fired all of us and the Republican-led effort to dismantle things like unemployment compensation insurance, so it made it harder for me to get my unemployment. I earned my unemployment by working my ass off, and then the Republican-led effort to dilute your unemployment compensation insurance, because yes, it was a Republican-led effort. You can go and look at the history of the legislation. Okay, there weren't any Democrats fighting for work requirements for food stamps. Okay, there weren't any Democrats fighting for strict requirements for unemployment compensation, minus a couple of really right-leaning establishment Democrat figures, right? Majority of Democrats want you to have food stamps. They don't want to take them away like the Republicans do. And the sad fact is that because of the 2023 Republican-led effort to dismantle our food stamp program, SNAP, I was not able to get on food stamps. And I still can't get on food stamps because I don't work enough. That defeats the whole purpose of having food stamps. You lose your fucking job because of no fault of your own, and you need a transitionary, something to help you transition to a new job to get food so you don't die. Okay? That's the position I'm in. And because I had to get a part-time job while I was on my unemployment, and that's a new requirement. You're not really, that defeats the purpose of unemployment, okay? You have to get a part-time job while you're on unemployment, while you're looking for a full, no. That means you're settling down, right? You're settling for a lower benefit job, right? That forces you to be in the workforce right away with an inadequate job. That's what that does, okay? And when you have a work requirement like that, and then on top of that, I was working at a place that was growing black mold in the freezer next to my cash register. So I fucking quit because after a month they wouldn't do anything about it, okay? It's these major giant dollar store corporations that are so fucking greedy, they have one or two people in an entire store instead of staffing it. It's very dangerous, by the way. Somebody almost broke in the other day to the store down the street, and there was one person, one young lady in the store by herself. You know how dangerous that is? On top of the black mold that was growing. So I quit. And you know what they did? They fucking denied my unemployment for that whole month because I quit my job even though the quitting was justified. You know how fucking dystopian that is? How disgusting? What a slap in the face to workers that is? No, this is what I call class warfare. And right now, the working class has had it worse than we ever have. People don't realize how bad we have it because we have distractions like TikTok and our phones to distract us from our everyday suffering, when in fact we have it just about as bad as they did during the Great Depression. Okay? People can buy just about as much. They were struggling just about as much. At the end of the day, when they paid all their bills, they had about just as much left over, which was nothing. If you can't see that we're going backwards at this moment, then I compare that to an analogy of a frog boiling in a pot of heating water. You know, if you don't realize that the system is in serious trouble right now, especially this country, then you're just a frog boiling in a pot of heating water, not aware of your demise until it's too late. And that's my purpose here, is to make people aware so they can jump out of the pot before it's too fucking late. So this is really, really dangerous territory we're skating on. And the fact that we have 18% a peak in homelessness over the last year alone, on top of an already 13%, is just another red flag that the system is about to collapse in on itself. Okay, we can't sustain that kind of homelessness, and in the richest country in the world, with the most empty houses in the world, because people from foreign countries buy them as investments. There's no excuse for this to happen right now. Cuba wanted to solve its homeless problem, and you know it did? It fucking solved its homeless problem because they had an agenda, and they had a goal that they were working towards that was legitimate. Now, the politicians may feign wanting to fix homelessness, but at the end of the day, their suggestions aren't going to fix homelessness, okay? It's going to take systemic reform to do that, and they are bought and paid for by the people who are benefiting from the current system, so they're not going to advocate for systemic reform. You got to follow the money, people. It's all about money. The love of money is the root of all evil. Okay? I can survive off of a shoestring budget and be just perfectly happy as long as my bills are paid. Okay? I don't need no fucking Lamborghini. I don't need a big fucking house to satisfy my the emptiness inside me, okay? I satisfy myself with social connections and memories and building things like like free energy devices. That's what satisfies me, not material things. You will never get true satisfaction in your life from the love of material things or the love of money. All you will end up with is more torture for yourself, more suffering, and more depression. Which is why I do not want to be someone like everybody's, I want to be like Trump. I want to be that. Right? No. If I won the lottery, it would be the worst fucking thing to happen in my life. You know how many people statistically lose their goddamn minds winning the lottery? They just can't handle it. It's a different fucking world you're in at that point. Okay? And people need to realize, people like Trump, people like Elon Musk, they live in a different fucking world than you do. If you're working to pay your bills, that's an entirely different situation than somebody who has everything handed to them and doesn't have to worry about things like the price of milk going up. Please explain all the ways you presently demonstrate non-compliance, as that's the only way. So the way I like to demonstrate non-compliance or exemplify it for people is, okay, it's very simple. And Yanis Varoufakis, who is another Marxian economist, had this idea, and it's a fucking brilliant idea. Okay, you don't want to pay your expensive energy bill anymore? You think it's ridiculous when we have the ability to create energy freely now? Well, we can go and do what's called a bill strike, or a lot of people do it for rent. It's called a rent strike. And if you strategically organize a big enough energy bill strike, you can put a giant hit in the funding mechanisms for these energy companies. And you hit them where it hurts, the money. Because again, they're taking money off of leases and stuff, basically pulling value out from the future, right? They have leases on all the lines, and they're paid in advance for money that you haven't paid your bill yet. So you pay your bill, but they have that money 10 years in advance. They're pulling value out of nowhere. So their system is a house of cards, more so than any other. If you strategically strike and organize a large enough strike around the country and tell people, no, we're not paying this ridiculous energy bill anymore, you can make them hurt. Okay? And you can open up a possibility for a new contender in the energy field to arise. So that's, that's what it's possible to do peaceful organizing of noncompliance. Okay? And it's called boycotting. It's what we've done in the past. It works. It freaking works if you get enough people to do it. And it's like when I say I want to boycott Amazon or I want to no union, no buy. Okay, it's not in all areas. I understand that there are certain circumstances where you have to buy from Amazon or you have to buy from a non-union place or a place that doesn't have a union. But at the end of the day, if you have a choice, yeah, it is a good option. And if you organize that on a mass scale, say, everybody, we're not buying from Amazon this week of the month. Okay, just this week. You can buy Amazon any other time, but this week, we're going to fucking hit them where it hurts until they negotiate with the contract for their union in good faith, because I don't want to be, I don't want to have somebody's blood, sweat, and tears on my mind when my package is being delivered. All right. I just want my fucking package. I don't want to have to worry about, is my package exploiting somebody and did somebody die on the floor of Amazon to put together my package? No, I don't want to have to worry about that. And I don't think we need our toothpaste the same day at 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of these things, like, you can go to the fucking store for, all right? And I know it's a big request to ask people to walk these days, but that's the situation we're in my generation specifically, who has to ride the bus more than ever, okay? Transportation's expensive. Gas is expensive. Energy is expensive. That's one of the reasons why we're working so hard to open sourcing the free energy aspect of it, because it's so expensive. We want people to save money on this stuff that they don't have to spend so much money on. At the end of the day, I have this thing, this nightlight running all fucking night off this 12-volt battery, and it only went down, 0.06 volts. 10 plus hours, and it only drained 0.06 volts out of the battery. It's absolutely insane, but it works. So we want to try to get those devices into more people's hands. But at the end of the day, without realizing the real analytical framework of how this energy technology has been suppressed in the first place, you're going to repeat the same cycle until you realize that capitalism itself and the organization of labor and how we organize labor under capitalism is the reason for the suppression of free energy technology. Unless you realize that and you continue on with the organization of labor like it's business as usual, it's going to continue to keep being suppressed. And I'm going to continue to have to emphasize that. Until you move past capitalism, you will still maintain that suppression mechanism for free energy devices. It's baked into the system. Dude, Nathan, I don't even know if I can repeat that, but that's funny as hell. Yeah, I love it when Nathan comes on and starts giving me a hard time. It's fun. We have fun on the show. We have fun. Nathan and I don't agree on everything, but we still get along, and I love that. Ironically vague says, bye, Felicia. Katie, you're not wrong. In many ways, the Great Reset might be our last chance to change things. And that's why I'm pushing so hard to get my my message out there. Whether you want to listen to me or not is one thing. I always say, you don't have to listen. You can turn me off. You can take the blue pill or whatever you want to do. It's fine. At the end of the day, I'm not forcing you to believe. I just want to make sure that the message is getting out there to as many people as possible. because I do feel like I do have an important thing to talk about that nobody else is talking about. And it's just coming from a place of the same place that you're at, Katie. We want to make sure that, when the Great Reset happens, that we're not making the same mistakes and that we make the world better. We want an economy that's self-sustaining like a plasmoid. And what does a plasmoid have? Well, it doesn't have any internal contradictions that lead to instability. A plasmoid is self-sustaining because it lacks internal contradictions that eventually lead to that system's instability. An economy is no different. We want to get rid of those internal contradictions so we have a self-sustaining economy that serves the needs for everybody in the society, not just a few at the top, right? So that's the goal here. And it has nothing to do with, I don't advocate for anything to do with the state. I think largely the state is a distraction at this point, simply because the state is a tool for whoever owns it. And at this point, the workers no longer own the state. The state is owned and bought and paid for by big corporations. So it's kind of a wasted energy to go that route. Right now, the simplest route and the easiest route is just to try to get my message out regarding the intricate connection between free energy suppression and capitalism, and also advocate for worker cooperatives. Meaning, like, if you're interested in starting a business, consider starting a worker cooperative where you have democracy in the workplace, kind of like what we do with the Fringe think tank. We make decisions together. We don't just let one person make an important decision that affects everybody. And I think that's really what the whole thing it boils down to is if you're going to be affected by a big decision at work, you should be able to have a decision, have a voice in that decision-making process. And that's all democracy is. So, and remember, we're a constitutional republic. We are a republic that's governed by a constitution, but we're also a hybrid system. We're a constitutional republic, but we're also a representative democracy, meaning that constitution is enforced by a representative democracy. We're a hybrid system. So we have to push those ideals further into the workplace if we're going to get behind them 100% and not be hypocrites, right? If you believe in democracy, I say put your money where your mouth is and put democracy in the workplace where it should have belonged in the first place. Katie says, don't ever say you have no place to go. I have room for everyone on my farm. That is very gracious, Katie. That makes me feel a lot better because, like I said, I was in a state just this month where we didn't know if we were going to make rent on the 15th. And as you know, a lot of places, the 15th is the cutoff. After the 15th, they start eviction procedures. So yeah, that's basically where we are right now. And if we had food stamps and if I had my unemployment, that wouldn't have happened. That absolutely wouldn't have happened. So, you can see why I take this all personal and I'm a little bitter. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to make people realize that, a lot of Americans are struggling right now and they're trying to understand why. And not a lot of people are talking about the actual reason why. There's a lot of distractions, like immigrants are taking our jobs. That's why no, that's not why you can't fucking afford rent. Okay. Illegal immigrants make up about 12%, 2% of the population. Under no circumstances, 2% of the population, the poorest percent of the population, going to affect the richest 330, million. That's just not statistically likely. What's more likely is that's a distraction to distract you from the real problem, which is your wage. Your boss doesn't want you to focus on the fact that your wages have been stagnant and his wages haven't been. CEO pay has gone up over the last 40 years. Where has workers' wage gone? Nowhere. And the more you're aware of that, the more you're going to be pissed off and likely to form a union. And you see how this all escalates against the business owner and how the business owner has a vested interest into buying the political process to kind of craft a narrative, right? So it's all about control. It all boils down to control. And whether you agree with me or not, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about, control. Like Tom Bearden says, everybody just wants to be the biggest monkey. And if you're at the top, you're gonna kick people off the hill to stay at the top. That's just how it is. You know, you're not going to dismantle the system that put you there in the first place. But yeah, I got to get ready for the Fringe think tank. We do have some updates regarding the open circuit method. I did get it working. I didn't get it working with the capacitor, so I might have to talk to Nathan about how to calculate the capacitance of my system, because I wasn't able to get the cap bank working. I mean, it works, but it doesn't work with the system, so I'm not choosing the right capacitance is what I'm saying. So yeah, but we have some updates on the open circuit method of the Lightning Thief device for the Fringe Think Tank podcast tonight at 6. I would like to end the stream so I can go get ready for that, though. Again, I know you guys don't all agree with me, but you know what I always say is, as long as you're a worker and I'm a worker and we both have to pay bills to survive, we're both in the same boat. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, I'm a socialist, he's a Democrat, that guy is a Green Party member. It doesn't matter. If we're workers, and we're all in this together, and we need to come to the realization that it doesn't matter. We can have disagreements politically. Yeah, that's fine. That's how we hash things out. You know, we have spirited debates, you know. Nathan and I already discussed this. It's okay to have spirited debates as long as you're not getting angry at one another, as long as you're not hating one another. You know, that's when it escalates to that, then you kind of have to kind of like stop it and like, you know, like reassess and like, okay, yeah, we've escalated this a little bit too much. Let's calm down a little bit and shake hands again. So, but yeah, it's perfectly healthy to have, you know, civil debates and to hash things out. You know, not everybody's going to agree on everything. But at the end of the day, I have more in common as a socialist with Nathan, who is more Republican leaning or more right wing leaning. I have more in common with Nathan as a socialist than both of us do with people like Elon Musk. And that's just how I feel, and that's the reality of the situation. We can relate to each other because we've gone through the same struggles. You know, we might have different opinions on how to go and eliminate those struggles, but at the end of the day, we have the same agenda of eliminating those same struggles. So, like we like to say, we're all on this sinking boat together. There's no point in drowning someone so you can be the one to survive. We all have to help each other out here in this circumstance. So with that, I'm going to end the stream. Appreciate all you guys, all the love and support, and even all the criticism. It's important. It's important to criticize and be skeptical. So I'll see you guys in a few hours for the Fringe Think Tank podcast. Don't bring up free lunches to bed. Okay, that's it. Okay, you got me. Good one, Nathan. That's a good one. Okay. I'm going to end the stream before he gets me again.
I remember when we used to stand in the heart of the workers' plan. Obstacles weighed heavy on our backs, but unity's the strength they lack. Good friends we had and good friends we've lost, fighting battles at every cost. But through the struggle we raise our voice, in solidarity we made our choice. No union, no buy. No union, no buy. Hey little brother, don't you come by. No union, no buy. Our hands build the wealth they hold so tight, but together we reclaim our rights. No more silence, no more pain. In our unity, there's everything to gain. We lift each other, we won't back down. From city streets to every town, the power's in the people's hands. No union, no buy. We take a stand. No union, no buy. No union, no buy. Hey little sister, raise your flag high. No union, no buy. All the tables are turning, the fire inside keeps burning. For the workers and the buyers, we're igniting freedom's fires. No union, no buy. No union, no buy. Together we'll rise and we won't deny. No union, no buy. remember when we used to stand with hope and strength, hand in hand. The struggle's hard, but we'll survive. No union, no bye-bye.